Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. Bruno Fernandes, should he stay or should he go? Big news coming in tonight and it's so wrong. It's so wrong. I tell you, it really is. But look, the reality is Bruno Fernandes could leave Manchester United in the summer. We've spoken about this last summer. He obviously had his comments about how he felt about the board in November. He's seen another project disappear and he is now going to be in a situation in the summer where he's got a big decision to make. Now, what's wrong about that, I'll tell you in a minute, but this is from Rob Dawson, who says that Bruno Fernandes has said he will not make a decision until after the World Cup, but United are keen to formalise their transfer plans in advance. They want to hold discussions before the World Cup to get Bruno to commit for another year. Now, whether that means another deal or not, he's already on 300 grand a week. Whether they're going to get him to do another deal or not, I don't know. It also talks about the summer transfer budget and what that will be spent on. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to talk about this because it's so wrong that we're in this situation. We've got a live poll for people who are watching live on whether Bruno should go or not in the summer, whether he should get a new deal or not. But in the multitude of reasons as to why Man United fail and the problems that Manchester United have at the moment, I don't know why that's on the screen. Let me just get rid of that. That's very, very annoying. In the multitude of problems that we have at the moment, and Bruno, but this is something that actually is really important because it's not a good thing that beyond sacking a manager, not spending in January, not knowing who the manager's going to be in the summer, utilising an interim, we don't know whether we're going to be in Europe, obviously all the debt. We also don't have a situation with our captain, whether we know he's going to be here next year. Now, ordinarily, you look at Liverpool last year, winning the league, lots of money to spend, they know who the manager is, club's well run, but they're stressing about what's happening with Salah in the summer. We're in exactly the same position, but we've also got terrible ownership, terrible form, not in Europe, and we still have that stress. And we don't need this. And it's so wrong that we're in this situation where we don't know whether Bruno Fernandes is going to be a Manchester United player next season. And it's, in my opinion, it's absolutely essential that he is. But we don't know. And it just feels like all the time, and maybe I put my hands up in the air and maybe I'd forgotten. You know, maybe I had forgotten about this. Maybe I hadn't thought about this. There were so many things to talk about. But it's just another key indicator about how badly the club is run, that our best player and our captain is potentially leaving in the summer and is going to make his mind up after the World Cup. And that's not breaking news. We knew that anyway. He said that himself. But United are now desperately scrapping around trying to make him stay for another year. In a way, devil's advocate, what does that do? Even if we get him to stay for one more year, what does that do? We need him to stay for 3 or 4 years. He's 31. I mean, I think we need him to stay for another 3 or 4 years. So does that constitute a new deal at that age on what he would want? Him staying for another year really isn't probably long enough as far as I'm concerned. But I hear people say in the chat, hold on a minute, you hypocrite. You said you wanted him to go in the summer. And I hear that, but look, let's go back to those videos. Let's go back to June. Let's go back to when, you know, it took him 2 weeks to decide about going to Saudi. I very much think that was a good opportunity to sell him. We'd just hit rock bottom, or so we thought. We'd just lost the Europa League. We'd just finished 15th in the final. He was atrocious in that Europa League final. And maybe that was the sacrificial lamb to take the 90 million and rebuild the team. Maybe that was the time to do it. But if you specifically remember my words, and a lot of people agreed with me, if we're playing him in the midfield, let's get him off to Saudi. If he's going to be playing as a number 10, it's a no from me. I made that very, very clear. I made that very clear throughout the season where he kept being picked in the midfield. And I was like, look, if he's in the midfield, he's got to go. This is just not getting the best out of him. The minute he goes back to number 10, he's our best player. He's the best number 10 in the Premier League. Name me a better number 10 in the Premier League than Bruno Fernandes. So it's a non-negotiable for me. He can't be allowed to leave the football club because he's our best player and he's the best number 10 in the league. And if you want any evidence of that, just watch back the first goal against Man City. The amount of times I see clubs break away with a 4v3 and they mess it up. And you just watch how simplistic Bruno made it, because he ran it and then passed it at the right time. And it looks so easy. You will see plenty of games over the next few weeks where you see teams break 4 against 3 and they mess it up. And you will come to appreciate the superb brilliance of Bruno Fernandes and how simply he made it look. Just the weight of the pass. Mbeumo doesn't need to take a touch into the bottom corner. It's absolutely perfect. He's the best number 10 in the league. But this is a big problem. And, you know, this is not speculation. This is a big problem for Manchester United, because the mess they made and the mess they're trying to clear up is there's multiple messes. But I am not happy about this situation, because it's not good. It's not good. It's really not good. And it's so wrong that this club is being run this way, whereby we're effectively having to go to a Man United player and captain and say, please stay. What are we doing to make that situation happen? And we have to look at that, because moving it away from what I want and maybe what you want, and do get your comments in, let's get real. We might not win this one this time. The pull of Man United might not be enough. If you look at it from Bruno Fernandes' point of view, and we are speculating on this, but had very deep talks with Saudi for 2 weeks at the end of last season, and the belief is that his family weren't ready for it, and he wanted to play in the Premier League for another year before the World Cup. So another year, maybe he does want to go. Maybe it's now is the time to go. United say, please stay for another year, and he looks at it and goes, for what? You know, maybe Carrick gets the job. Well, I've done that with Ollie. Well, maybe it's going to be De Zerbi. Well, I've done that with Ten Hag and Amorim. You know, what's the project this time? How many more projects are you going to sell me? Man United have abandoned more projects than a drunk builder. It's true. So if you're Bruno Fernandes, you probably are going to go, I'll stay for another year if you pay me to do it, because I love the club, I love the fans, but in a way, you haven't served my career what it deserves. I'm going to look back on my career and I'm going to go, how many trophies did I win? How many trophies did Bruno Fernandes win? All right, I'll probably go down as one of the most creative players in Premier League history, but how many trophies got delivered to me because of your incompetence? And there might be offers on the table that are Bayern Munich. There might be offers on the table that are in La Liga, one of the big two there. He might just go for the money. He might just go to Saudi, but there might be options. There might be options for Bruno Fernandes. And can Man United just play the card of we're Man United again? It's worrying, and it's wrong that we're in this situation, and it's not our fault. It's not the fans' fault. It's not the ex-players' fault. It's the club's fault. Why are we in a position where in 6 months' time, our captain is going to have to make a decision, and it might not be to stay at Manchester United? And that's because you talk about sacking managers, and some of you are very happy to do it, and some of you didn't want it to happen. But from a player perspective, in some ways it's worse. Why will I commit my time to another project here when I've wasted numerous years on projects that you keep abandoning? And Bruno would be one of the people that was buying into the Amorim project, by the way. But look, that's by the by. It's wrong that we're in this situation. And it goes back to the club again. You are burning careers. You know, footballers only have a certain amount of time. And if you keep abandoning the cycle of managers, is killing careers. Now, for some people, they're happy there to take the 250 grand a week. They don't care. They're mercenaries. But I think in the case of Bruno Fernandes, you could never say that about Bruno. He always wants to play. He always wants to win. And we've failed him. We have failed him at Manchester United. Bruno Fernandes has been failed. Now, some people say, oh, shut up. He's got great assists. He's been paid very, very well. And I'm sure that is a factor in Bruno Fernandes' life. And I'm sure he likes the trappings of being a professional footballer at the top of his game. However, you look through history at people like John Terry, Roy Keane, you know, and it's not just about the money, it's about winning. And I'm not saying Bruno Fernandes is a John Terry or a Roy Keane. They're two of the best captains in the Premier League history. But he is a winner. He's a born winner. And he wants to win. And I don't think we've given him that platform. And if we can get another year out of him, great. But I don't think it's going to be easy. And I don't think it's necessarily a foregone conclusion. And he has said himself he'll make his mind up after the World Cup. I think certain things can be hit. I think if we get Champions League football, it gives us a big chance. If we don't get European football or it's Europa League, I think that kills our chance. So, look, United can make a play, but I don't think it will come down to money. I think it will come down to what's happening next year. And Bruno Fernandes, depends how intelligent he is. If I was him and they wanted me to stay, this could be an advantage for us. Because if I was Bruno Fernandes, and it's imperative that he stays to me, absolutely imperative. But if I'm Bruno Fernandes, I'm saying, look, if you want me to stay, you need to bring a manager in that's going to deliver from day one. And you need to bring players in that are going to deliver from day one. Because if you're going to bring me another learner-driver manager with potential, with a couple of learner-driver signings that we've got to develop, I'm off. Because that's not going to work. Because next season, we won't qualify for Europe. It'll be a bloody pain. And I'll have wasted another year of my career. So I think if Bruno's going to stay, I hope he says to the club, look, I want this manager. I want this manager and I want these players and I'll stay. I don't know whether he will do that, but it would be good for us if he did. But I absolutely think if we don't get Champions League football, he'll be gone. He will go. So, look, it's probably not something we want to be talking about, but it is going to happen. I think there's a very big chance it'll happen. Let me get into your comments, see what people have got to say. Please do smash a like on the video and share the video, by the way. We are a little bit early tonight because I'm doing... Well, I suppose it's Mason Greenwood watch along, it's De Zerbi watch along, it's Marseille against Liverpool. There's a lot to it. I'm quite looking forward to it. Daniel Thompson with a super chat says, I hope you're well, Mark, and the United stand. I think Bruno is in a rock and a hard place as he loves United but wants to win trophies, and we can't guarantee those, unfortunately. No, and I think that, look, I'd love to know your thoughts, because some people in the chat are saying, no, it's time to go. It's a lot of money for somebody of Bruno Fernandes' age. He's going to be 32 in September. You could get £55 million for a 32-year-old, which is very good. I look at Bruno Fernandes and I actually think that the position he plays, if we're going to play a 4-3-3, the position he plays, and it has to be a 10, I think we could get 32 is next season because it's at the start of the season, 33, 34. Three more seasons out of Bruno, definitely. Maybe a fifth and sixth, but definitely another 3 seasons as a number 10 with Bruno Fernandes at United. I think we could get another 3 years out of him. So, look, a midfielder, sell him tomorrow. I'm never going to be a hypocrite on that. I'd have sold him playing as a midfielder. As a number 10, I can't see anybody better. And I've had my issues with him. I think he is indisciplined. I think he does like a Hollywood ball. But that's what I wanted when we bought him, and at times I've had a problem with it. But ultimately, I can't help the fact that when it comes to Bruno Fernandes as a number 10, it's a non-negotiable. I can't sell him. I can't. I think it's too much to replace. Keel says, can Cunha do the role? Well, I think Cunha was bought for that role, and I think Cunha's very good in that role. But he's very, very different. Bruno is get the ball, move the ball. I think Cunha's get the ball, run with the ball. They're very different players, and why take that risk? Why even try to take that risk? Keep him. Malpa says, Bruno is going, in my opinion. Look, if you're asking me, is he going? And nobody has. I would say it's 50-50. And this is why I think it's so wrong. It's so wrong because I just don't know how we've ended up in this situation. And I tell you why we haven't. I do know why we've ended up in this situation. As I say, it's got nothing to do with the fans. It's got nothing to do with the name of Man United. And it's got everything to do with the way it's been run. He absolutely, directly and publicly called out the ownership in the autumn. He called them out. I can't remember the exact words, but he said he felt like he'd been disrespected and was being pushed out of the club. It was a public statement. So I don't think he'd be particularly happy that Amorim's gone, but he's a professional footballer and he likes Carrick, so he'll back him and he'll work hard because he likes playing football. But bigger picture, I guarantee he's having conversations with his family and his agents about what's on the table. What's on the table for me? And you can't begrudge him that, you know. You can't begrudge him. I'm not going to sit here and say, Bruno's a bloody traitor if he leaves. Bruno should stay at Man United. I can't say that. I can't say that because I definitely think if he went and played for Bayern Munich or Barcelona or Real Madrid or PSG, he'd be a bloody good player for them. Now, some people would argue he wouldn't start for those teams, but he'd be a good player for them and he'd win things with them. And as I say, I think he's got 3 years left at the top. For me, the Saudi deal's money. And if he feels like money at 32 years of age, that's up to him. But I actually think if the offers are there, he could easily go to one of the top 5 teams in Europe for 3 years and have a big part to play in their success. At Man United, I don't think we can offer him that success. I can't sit here and say I don't see a way back for Man United in the next 10 years and then say, Bruno, you should be staying at United for the next 3. You can't do that. I want him to, but it's not our fault that that platform's not there. It's the club's fault. So when they say to him, Bruno, we want you to stay for another year, I'm hoping his answer's going to be, I'll only stay if you bring in a top manager and some top players. Now, I don't know whether they'll say yes to that, in which case they'll probably go, let's take the 60 million. So, look, maybe we're being spun a little bit as well. Man United know this is a PR disaster. I said this about Ndidi. I said it about Loftus-Cheek. You put it out there, players that you know the fans don't want, and then you go, well, we didn't buy anybody because they didn't want us to. You put it out there that you're going to try and get Bruno to stay because you know deep down that you want him to go to cash the money in, and you go, well, we tried, and he said no. Are they trying? Are they trying? Because asking somebody to stay isn't trying. Asking somebody of that quality to stay is saying, here's the manager, here's the project, here's the players, we're going for it next season. Please stay isn't staying if the situation's going to stay. Sorry, please stay at Man United isn't really getting them to stay if you're not going to change everything else. You're just saying, please stay, you know? It's like being in a relationship where you keep falling out and having an argument, and you packed your bags and they go, please stay. Are you going to change? No, but please stay. Are you going to be nice to me? No, but please stay. You know, you've got to put the changes in my opinion. Paul Cassidy says, well, here we go. Suspect the club expect him to go, hence why won't Cox is sniffing around Cole Palmer, says Paul Cassidy. I'll tell you what, I'd be stunned if Cole Palmer came to Man United. I'd be stunned if Man United had the money. We have no one who can replace Bruno in the squad, and there aren't any players of that quality in the market. This is going to be an awful loss, says Andre. As a number 10, well, imagine this. You've just reminded me of something else I wanted to bring in. Imagine we let Bruno go, or he wants to go. Do you replace him? Do you replace him? Because you might go, well, we don't need to replace him. We've got Lacey coming through. We've got Cunha. We've got Mason Mount. We don't need to replace him. So we might not even bloody replace him, you know? As a 10, keep Bruno unless we're offered 100 million. I feel like City is going to be the easiest game for Carrick. See how the rest of the season goes before we finalise Bruno. Sorry, I've got a tickly throat now. Thank you very much, Nate. What about if Cole Palmer's available in the summer? What is this Cole Palmer nonsense? You are Glazerites. You are Glazerites. You are the people who get hyped on bloody fumes and, you know, get distracted from real issues. Cole Palmer. Can Cunha do the Bruno role? We'll do that from Kiel. Just to add, says Daniel Thompson, I hope Bruno stays, but I wouldn't blame him if he left, which makes getting the Champions League or Europe so vital and not doing deals in January so more costly. Exactly. Mark, we need to bring back Rashford. I think he's the missing piece. I'm going to answer this. I mean, it's completely off-piste, but I'm going to answer this. So, Loresta says, we need to bring Rashford back. I think he is the missing piece. I saw something today from a low-level source that Man United are considering bringing Marcus Rashford back. If we bring Marcus Rashford back, I think it's the biggest mistake Marcus Rashford's going to make in his career. And that's genuine, right? You left Man United for a new challenge, in your own words, right? You left Man United for a new challenge. You went to Barcelona, where you're doing really well, at one of the best clubs in the world, that's going to be in the Champions League every year and compete for the La Liga every year, and you're going to go to the World Cup. Why would you come back to Manchester United? Because if you come back to Manchester United, right, the first bad game you have, people will get on your back, and half the fan base won't want you back. So why would you come back? I don't know why you would bother coming back. Would I take him back? I can only say one thing. No, I wouldn't take him back, because I literally sat here, a week or two ago, about Ollie saying, I don't believe in going back. I don't believe in going back. We brought Cristiano Ronaldo back, and I said yes, because it was pure and utter fantasy to see Ronaldo back in a Man United shirt and you only live once. And that's because Ronaldo's just one of the best players that's ever played the game. And ultimately that ended badly, didn't it? So we shouldn't be going back with anybody. We shouldn't go back with Rashford. We shouldn't go back with Ollie. We shouldn't go back with Mourinho. We just shouldn't go back because the clue is in the word. Why go back when we want to go forward? So no, I wouldn't do it. And but the reason I mentioned him first is because, you know, if I say I don't want him back, oh, you're so negative. I don't want him back because I don't think we should go back. But for him, I don't think he should come anywhere near. And also, I think Rashford would be naive to come back for the reasons I've said. But also, he'd be naive to go, I'll come back now Amorim's gone. Because it wasn't Ruben Amorim that wanted rid of Rashford. It was Sir Jim Radcliffe. It was Jason Wilcox. It was Omar Barada. They wanted him gone as well because of the money. The same reason they want Casemiro gone. The same reason they were probably pushing for Bruno to go in the summer. The same reason they want Sancho gone. So he'd still be working for those people. I told you this will happen. Every now and then he says he would leave and they give him a new contract. I'm sick of this shit. Player power again, says Sheriff. Well, that's a very different approach to it. But look, I've got to say, this is why I love this community. Should Bruno leave in the summer? No, 55%, but a very high yes, 45%. Ricky's been on his bots again. If you check Ricky's Instagram out, it's always sunny. Well, in the UK at the moment, it's raining a lot. So Ricky's got this little haven. I think it's in Barbados, right? And what he shows you is the sea behind, but in front of him, he's got loads and loads of workers on loads of phones and laptops jumping onto polls like this to say, get rid of Bruno. I'm telling you now, get rid of Bruno. Get rid of him. But I'm surprised I'm surprised. Will some of you tell me then, what if you're in that 45%, why? Why would you get rid of him? Because look, as I said, for me as a number 10, it's absolutely no. If we're playing him in the midfield, it's absolutely yes. But now he's in the number 10 position, which is where I want him to play. It's no. I just can't understand why I would look at the Bruno situation today and go, I don't want him to be here in December doing the same thing. In the same calendar year, all right, there's 2 seasons, but I've got to lose him in the middle of the year. No, why? Why would I remove a player that has got absolutely no traits that's going to diminish in the next 2 years? His pace isn't really that important. And he's not, I don't think pace is a massive part of his game anyway. He's not going to lose his touch. He's not going to lose his dead ball ability. I just don't see why you'd say get rid of Bruno in the summer. It's such a huge risk for me. As Gene says, keep Bruno if he's a 10. David says, well, no. User says it hopefully would allow us to strengthen. Yeah, but you know what? I know Everton sell players to buy other players, but Man United, if you're selling your best player so you can buy midfielders, that's a bad message. It's a great point, but it's a bad message. And you might be right with it, and that might be why Man United do it, but you don't sell your best player to fund other players. That's not the behaviour of a top club. Sometimes Ronaldo wants to go to Real Madrid, and there's nothing you can do about it, so you use that money for other players. Sometimes Coutinho wants to leave Liverpool, and you use that money to, buy players. But you don't willingly sell your best player to rebuild a team. That's not how it works. And people will say, well, you said we need a sacrificial lamb. Yeah, but that was a very different situation. That was Manchester United losing the Europa League final, finishing 15th in the Premier League, hitting a supposed rock bottom with no money. They were telling us we had no money. And you've got £90 million from Saudi coming in for Bruno, and you might go, mate, well, if we're ever going to do it, now's the time to do it. And also for me, a lot of that was because he was probably going to play in the midfield as well. Kia says, Bruno and United are like a toxic couple, constantly fighting and getting back together. Bruno is a fine player, but his time at United was wasted. Time to move on. Fair point, Kia. I completely disagree with it, but, at least we're getting the alternative, because I think it's been a bit one-sided from me, and I never like it to be like that. I want a bit of both involved in it. So there we go. I've got another comment coming in as well here. Let me have a quick look. Paul Cassidy says, JT not a top captain, Wayne Bridgegate, Anton Ferdinand Gate, full kit Champions League final gate. Please correct the record, Mark. Yeah, but mate, you're talking about things that have got absolutely nothing to do with a player being what I think was one of the best centre-backs I've seen in the Premier League era and a very good captain for Chelsea. I mean, there are reasons to dislike him, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I think he was a player that, you know, did very, very well and was a very good captain. If Bruno was at City, why do I keep saying City? If Bruno was at City, they'd win the lot, says Pure Turnip. Did you see Sky trying to say Manu as an engine in him, Mark? City were absolutely useless against us and Bodo Glimt, says David. The mainstream's full of shit, though, mate. I mean, that's why we do well. But they're full of shit. I was listening to Beth's lunchtime video yesterday, and she was talking about how Manu ran quite far in the Manchester derby. Like he accumulated quite a long distance. But I double checked it, and in other games, other people have run further with less possession. So we had 30% possession, which means for 70% of the game we didn't have the ball. Well, I'd expect people to be running. So I don't think because we beat Man City, Kobbie Mainoo's turned into Kante in relation to the distance he covers. He might turn into that, but it's also, you know, very early days to be, you know, saying that he's that type of a player. I think he needs to be that type of player. He's going to play in that position where we need him to support the attack and get back. But yeah, you know, it's like saying giving the Carrick the job after one game. We can't, you know, I thought Mainoo played really well against Man City, but I specifically said in the match reaction, if he played badly, I wouldn't have been bad on him. What we need to see is him play 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row and see how he's doing then, because I think that's there for him to do. Jop says, hi Mark, I just want to shout out my dear friend Luke who died in a car accident on Friday, says Jop. Mate, that is absolutely, you know, sometimes you read a comment and you don't know where it's going to go. That is absolutely tragic. Massive thoughts with you, friends and family of Luke, and, you know, rest in peace as well. You like that comment, you never know what's coming, do you? Which is why we should live every moment we get. We don't know about tomorrow. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So sorry to hear that, and thanks for sharing that with us, Jop. Keel says, I'm sorry if he stays. It's a rebrand, not a rebuild, says Keel. Well, look, it's only a theory. I'm literally only selling a theory here. But my theory is that well, look, we can't speak for Bruno, but if I was Bruno Fernandes, I would be saying, I will stay. And look, I think we've got a goal out. We've not set up a goal in ages, but the goal is I'll reveal my number one Carrick replacement. But I'm losing my thoughts now. Let's just say Bruno Fernandes is sat there and somebody says to Bruno, off record, who is your number one managerial target for your dream manager target in the summer that's going to be available? And if Bruno Fernandes says, you know what, I really want to play for Conte. I want to play for Conte. And Man United go, agent of Conte, would he come to Man United? Absolutely. Absolutely. He nearly went to Juventus last year. He'd swim to Manchester for the Man United job. You know, he's always wanted it. He'll take it, right? So if Bruno Fernandes says to the board when they say we want you to stay and we'll chuck you in another 50 grand a week, I'm not bothered about the money because I can make that money at Saudi. I'm not bothered about that. I want Antonio Conte as the manager, and I want you to go and buy a couple of really good midfielders, and I'll stay. Will the club do it? Probably not, but that's what I'd say. I wouldn't just stay another year because they said, please stay. I'd say, right, okay, you want me to stay, listen to me. Because I ain't bloody playing under De Zerbi. And I'm not nurturing Belabor. I want you to go and get 2 really good, ready-to-go midfielders, and I want Conte as the manager. Now, look, it could be Tuchel. It could be Nagelsmann. But I think you've got to go. If you want to keep somebody of that stature, he has got to be saying that, and they've got to deliver it. And I don't think they will. I don't think they would. I agree with Neil. I think if Bruno said, I'll stay if you get this manager and a couple of players that are ready to go because I want to go for it next year, I think they'd say, oh, we couldn't do it, sorry. Because they're never going to give the job to Conte, are they? If Bruno was at City, they'd have won the lot. Thank you very much, Pure Turnip, as well. Thank you very much. Not looking good for Man United. We're falling down the table, says Natural Hazard. We literally just won at the weekend. And 32 is too old to change, says NB. That's crazy player power, says John. Oh, I know we talk about player power, and player power at Man United's never really been a good thing, and you could completely ignore it. But if we had a proper board, we wouldn't need to listen to players. Our board is going to go and appoint a puppet and keep recruiting learner drivers. If Bruno Fernandes says, I'm not staying because you're going to keep doing that, that's on the board. If Bruno Fernandes says, I'll stay if you bring a manager in who's ready and a couple of players who's ready, and they do it, well, give Bruno the job as CEO because he's doing a better job than our lot. If you had a competent board and CEO, you wouldn't have to have the conversation about Bruno staying for another year because he'd be happy to stay. It's all cause and effect. The reason Bruno would have to say that is because the board's incompetent. If he had a competent board, he wouldn't even be thinking about leaving because we'd already be. I mean, look, let's get real here, right? I keep seeing these journalists talking about Ruben Amorim didn't go to an under-21s game in his entire time at Manchester United. Who gives a shit? What's that got to do with anything? He didn't get sacked for that, did he? Did he get sacked for not going to an under-21s game? No, he got sacked because Wilcox wanted to change the formation and not give him any players in January. So, you know, what's that got to do with the price of bread? Absolutely nothing. So when we're talking about Manchester United and the vision forward and Bruno Fernandes, remember, we have got a board that are completely and utterly shite. And they're selling you one thing and then they're selling you something else. You can't trust them. So if you're going to stay, you've got to pin them down on something. Because if you don't, you're putting yourself in the hands of idiots, which we have to do because we can't change our club. But if you're a professional footballer, you can. You can go, you know what, I've had enough of your shit. I do love Man United, but I'm not a fan. I'm a player with a career. I'll come back and watch the club when I'm finished. But for now, I've got to look after myself. Thoughts on Amas and Collier heading out on loan, says Paul. I mean, not a lot. Amas is already on loan. He's done really well at Sheffield Wednesday. I think he's heading to Norwich. You know, they're better off on loan than being at Manchester United and not playing games, are they? So I personally think Obi should be going out on loan. I think him and Kone have wasted 6 months, to be honest. I really do. I think they were bought in what feels like a long time ago, and people thought they were going to go into the first team, and they haven't. So, how many likes to turn up to Old Trafford with a full kit, says Shadow. There is no likes target for that. There are absolutely none. Although, if you want to smash on the like on the video, please do, and please keep sharing the video. We've got 7,500 legends watching, and I appreciate we're in an earlier slot tonight. Just on that, though, thank you very much, Paul, for your super chat about Amas, because story coming in tonight about, I mean, look, I'll read you the story, and then I can give you my opinion. Man United, according to the Manchester Evening News, have submitted an offer to sign defender Yisa Alou from Sheffield Wednesday. Stiff competition from Chelsea and Liverpool, which means Alou has options on the table to consider. Scouts have been impressed with his athleticism and scope for improvement. So he's a 17-year-old left-back at Sheffield Wednesday. However, Whitwell has said that Chelsea close to finalising deal to sign Alou, 17-year-old Sheffield Wednesday left-back. Man United also in talks, but had a bid rejected in December. Package includes major add-ons and could significantly surpass £1 million. So, I mean, look, my instant reaction is, I don't care. I don't care. If this was an isolated incident, I would. However, I genuinely don't care, because how many more kids are we going to buy before focusing on the actual first team? Like, he might end up being the next Ashley Cole, right? I completely agree with that. But what does that do for Man United? We keep buying these 17-year-olds who are going to be the next this and the next that and the next this and the next that. I'm bored of it. I'm bored of that strategy. I'm not excited about it anymore, because all that happens is we never hear from them again. We don't loan or develop them, or we do pick them, and then the fans go, "Oh, they're shit. They're not good enough." We're not in a position to develop players, and we're not going to be in a position to develop players until we become a club that can be in the Champions League every year with experienced players. So I don't really give a shit. I think it's just funny that he might be signing for Chelsea, because what a bloody surprise. What a surprise. Man United are looking for a young player that might go to Chelsea. Oh, could that be because we're obsessed with Chelsea by any chance? Is that what it is again? Oh, Chelsea are going after teenagers, so we've got to do it. I couldn't give a shit. If he signs for Chelsea, so what? Maybe he will be the next Ashley Cole, because if he comes to Man United, we'll never hear from him again anyway, because we don't know how to develop talent anymore, because we haven't got the experienced players to do it, which is exactly why it's wrong to let people like Bruno go, because he's probably one of the few. And I'm not saying he's the best captain in the world, but at least he's an experienced player. And with Casemiro having to go in the summer and Maguire pretty much being at the back end of his career, I think losing someone like Bruno Fernandes leaves a massive void in the leadership team, which again, you have to say, it's just so wrong we put ourselves into that position. 1 Inch Wonder says, I saw Bruno drinking champers with Sir Jim in Manchester last night. He won't leave for Saudi now. He's had a taste of the good life. Well, hope so. Christian Horner is available this summer, says FIFA. And thank you very much for that as well. A couple of other bits to bring you. This has come in from Steve Bates. He says that many inside Old Trafford believe JJ Gabriel is the generational talent who could become a real Manchester United global superstar. United are keen to give him a taste of the big time, but as Sir Alex Ferguson did with Giggs in the early days of his career, United are being cautious with Gabriel, even though the clamour for him to be unleashed is growing by the day. He can't be unleashed. Sometimes the journalism will be false. He can't be unleashed. I mean, look, it's not my job to be a journalist, but he actually can't be unleashed. The only game he could play in was the FA Cup, and we're out. He can't play in the Premier League this year because of his birthday being after the registration. So he can't play this season. So he's not going to get a taste of the good life this year because he can't play in the Premier League till next season. He does look very special. He does look very generational, but also he is free to sign for Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG, or any other club that comes in for him the summer after next, and there's nothing we can do about it. And they will go for him. So I think with JJ, he nearly left before, and in a year in the summer he can go again. But he does look very good. But next season, we need to be giving him game time in the Premier League, because if that's when you get him in, then hopefully he stays. But again, look, in a way, it's very similar to Bruno, isn't it? If you're not providing the platform, players will go. If Bruno Fernandes had the platform at Man United, he'd stay until he's 36. We have failed Bruno Fernandes in the sense that he could leave in the summer because the club isn't providing him with the platform. And if next season we start giving JJ time in the team, but the team isn't very good, and it's not in the Champions League, and then PSG come along and go, come to us, play for us, you'll be a superstar overnight, off you go, bye-bye. And that isn't the player's fault. That's the club's fault. And this is why we're riddled with issues at the football club, because there's so many, but these are issues that are coming down the road. With JJ, he can't leave until next summer, not this summer. But if the platform's not there, I think if you want these people to be part of our future, you've got to provide a future. And to do that, you've got to bring a manager in that people go, wow. Look, for me, if you want people like JJ and Bruno to commit to Man United, you've got to bring a Luis Enrique in. You got to, that's my manager. You've got to bring a Luis Enrique in. You've got to bring a guy in that wants the project, wants to take Man United back to the top, wants to play good football. You've got to bring someone like that in. Whether he would want to come to the circus is another matter, but that's the sort of player that you've got to bring in my opinion. So, yeah, if you don't provide that platform, what do you expect? What do you expect? A couple of other bits I want to bring in as well. I've seen the stuff about Ndidi, but I'm a little bit bored talking about that, if I'm being completely honest. Chelsea front runners for that player as well. Thank you for that. You're looking forward to watching Mason Greenwood? I haven't watched Mason Greenwood in a very long time. Some of it was sort of self-inflicted. I just didn't want to. I think long enough has gone on now. You know what? It'd be quite an interesting watch on tonight on That's Football. You got De Zerbi, who is definitely high on Man United's list for the manager, so I want to look at how they play. You've got Liverpool in a game where if they lose, they're in big trouble, so I want to see that happen. And then you've got Mason Greenwood, who, look, I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. I really don't. It's a bit of an awkward one to do live, but I always said, you talk about talent, he was generational. Can't condone or comment or get involved in everything else that happened after that, but there was a fantastic player there. And look, years have passed, things have moved on, they've moved on, that relationship has moved on. I think they've got 2 kids together now. So I think it's, an interesting time to just sit and look at what the player is now. But obviously, it's going to stir up emotions of what could have been and why did that happen, this, that, and the other. But look, I wouldn't say, I'm looking forward to watching the game and seeing it. And also, I think the De Zerbi angle is really interesting. Jid91 says, do you think we'll beat Liverpool's streak and go 30 years without a league title? How many years are we at the moment? So 2013, 13 years. God, mate, if it's 17 more years, the scary thing is I'll be in my 60s. That's bad. And then if we haven't won it then, I'll be starting to think, will I ever see one again? That's terrifying, isn't it? Terrifying. I think if that stadium gets built, we're stuck with this ownership for a very long time. And I just don't see... Look, we already know how the Glazers behave. They're not going to take us back to the top. And we've seen in the last 2 years how Ineos behave, and they don't look like they're going to take us back to the top. So I don't know. I don't know. Billy says he'll be in his 70s. Someone in the chat just said I'll definitely be dead. Sadly, I think some of you probably will. Robert McCormack says he's flying this season. Well, look, I think enough time has passed to go and watch the game and, yeah. We could squeeze Pulisic into the midfield, says Alex. I just think that, look, there are still people who leave comments on videos talking about there's too much negativity in this community. I don't think there is. I don't think there is. I think the reaction to beating Man City was one that was, very, very, very positive. But it's not our fault if everywhere you look, there is reason to be concerned. And, when I read that thing from Rob Dawson today that United want to speak to Bruno before the World Cup to try and get him to commit for another year, when Bruno said he'll wait till after the World Cup, sorry, not the FA Cup, I think that's going to be a struggle. I think it's going to be a real struggle. And to be fair, we haven't mentioned that. So Man United plan to talk to Bruno before the World Cup to get him to commit for another year because they want to know what's happening for the following season, retransfers. Why would Bruno Fernandes, before the World Cup, say, yeah, let me sort my future out? I think Bruno Fernandes is highly likely to say, I will make my mind up after the World Cup. And if Man United say, well, we want a decision now, I'd say, well, you're not getting it. Because this is going to be one of the biggest World Cups ever. And I'm totally focused on that after another exhausting season from Manchester United because of you. So I'm going away to play for Portugal, to enjoy a World Cup. And whilst I'm there, I'll listen to what's on offer. And then I'll talk to you. I don't know why you would commit to Man United before that. And then it would be interesting because Man United might say, well, if you're not going to commit now, we're going to get rid of you. And then you go, well, fuck you then, don't you? it's really difficult to even... I don't want to go there with the summer. There's too much. But the minute, I don't know about you, the minute your mind wanders to the summer and things like Bruno and transfers and players leaving, even on players leaving, you go, well, Casemiro's going to say, I'm going to wait till after the World Cup. Harry Maguire, if he gets picked for England, might wait till after the World Cup. Bruno Fernandes is going to wait till after the till after the World Cup. The World Cup really isn't over till the back end of July, mid-July. That's a very short period of time to start doing business, isn't it? So, again, you sort of like go, it's so wrong that we've put ourselves into this position. Then we've got to try and buy players as well. And also, what happens with the manager? Are we going to know who our manager is before the World Cup? I mean, you want Bruno to commit for another year, but you're not going to tell him who the manager is. I mean, if Carrick does really well and they give it to him, he'll know it's Carrick and maybe he commits. But maybe if it's someone like De Zerbi, you know that before the World Cup. Or maybe you're going to wait to see what happens with Tuchel or Nagelsmann. So, yeah, I think it's a tough one to sort of figure out, if you know what I mean. Would you take Kante until the end of the season from Saudi, says Gary? I think a lot of people probably would, but having seen Kante play in the last 18 months, I don't think he's up to playing in the Premier League long before he gets injured. Number one, Adel hater. Is that you, Adel, changing your name? I've missed recent watches. Thoughts on Carrick permanently if he does well? If not, why and who? Apologies, I'm asking an old question. No, I've said about Michael Carrick, it's ridiculous to give Michael Carrick the job because even if he does well, he's doing well in an interim basis where if you're an interim person, you go in, you give everybody a hug, you make everyone like you, and you're all in it together and everyone is really happy. And then you get the job full time and you go, get out, get out, get out, get out. I've got to build something longer now. And then you lose that and then people stop playing for you. So you should never judge an interim because they're always in a happy place of, oh, let's work together. And then when they're gone, you know, when you give them something permanent, they start selling people and they upset people. So it's dangerous to give it to an interim anyway. However, what I have said is if Carrick goes and wins a lot of games, he's got to be under consideration. I wouldn't even start thinking about giving it to Carrick until April. You've got to have 10 games in the Premier League and assess those 10 games. But even then, I wouldn't give him the job without interviewing other people. I wouldn't. I'd let the season end and let it die down because what we can't do is do what we did with Ollie. We're going to appoint a manager in the summer and then in March get lost in all the noise and go, give it to Carrick, give it to Carrick. I think at the very minimum, you've got to wait until the summer before you give it him and interview other people. But a good question, a very good question. Okay, right. Well, we're not that long away. Better get the telly on. There's not that long until Marseille against Liverpool kicks off. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff, and we will be live on That's Football. You can join me over there. So great show tonight. Really enjoyed it. I'm sure it's a cracker for people who didn't watch it live. So make sure you leave your comments in as well. A very emotive topic and one where 45% of you would sell Bruno Fernandes. So there we go. Thank you to the 8,000 legends who watched live. Please do smash a like on the video on your way out and make sure you're tuning in on That's Football. I'll be there in about 5 minutes as we watch Mason Greenwood and De Zerbi take on Liverpool for Marseille. It's going to be an interesting watch along. A former United player and then potentially next Man United manager against Liverpool, our biggest rivals. Let's see. See you over there. Thanks for watching.